Ex-wife's incredible transformation revealed, arrives in a Ferrari with twins, touching millions. The sun gleamed off the sleek, red Ferrari as it glided through Maplewood's cracked streets, a far cry from the polished roads of her past. Sarah sat behind the wheel, her heart racing with a mix of pride and apprehension. With every turn, she could feel the eyes of her small town upon her, and a lump formed in her throat. In the back seat, her twin daughters, Emma and Lily, giggled, their laughter like music from a distant dream. Just last year, they had squeezed into their mother's old, worn-out car, and now they were here defying every expectation. Once a wealthy businessman's wife, Sarah was now a single mother battling the stereotypes that threatened to define her. "Look at Mommy, girls," she called out, forcing a smile as they pulled up to the diner where she had forged not just a job, but a life. Today felt like a movie, and she was the star, only this was no script, it was real. Every day, she poured her heart into work, serving coffee, cleaning offices, squeezing in night classes, an unwavering commitment to the American dream. On the hardest days, they curled up on the couch together, sharing stories of dreams, bright stars, and wishes. Each moment spent with her daughters fueled her resolve. But just when Sarah thought the tides would turn in her favor after receiving a promotion at the diner that made her feel like she was finally seeing, betrayal struck like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. Her own coworker had whispered lies, casting shadows on her hard-won success. That betrayal clenched her heart like a vice, whispering words of defeat in her ear. Yet in the silence of her living room, the sound of her daughter's laughter drew her back. As they poked fun at each other in their playful banter, she could see their unfiltered joy shining through. "Remember falling stars?" she asked, her voice softening. "We can wish on them," Emma chimed in, eyes wide with wonder. In that moment, Sarah realized that success wasn't solely about money, it was the resilience she instilled in her girls. Fueled by newfound courage, Sarah confronted her ex-husband, not with rage, but firm determination. "I'm doing this for our daughters," she began, surprising even herself as she articulated her dreams for a better life. She demanded he understand the weight of his choices and how they echoed through their daughters' lives. As they drove home in the fresh luxury of the Ferrari, her heart swelled with hopes and dreams for what lay ahead. Pulling up in front of the diner, the reactions from familiar faces were mixed: curiosity, disdain, surprise, and she could feel the air thicken around them. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Sarah took a deep breath as they stepped out of the car. The whispers and stares felt like storms swirling around them. What did they think of her? Was this transformation legitimate in their eyes? Had she truly left behind the shadows of her past, or would it always cling to her like a second skin? As she stood tall beside her daughters, determination surged through her veins. The battle for a better life was just beginning, and the road ahead promised to be anything but easy. The diner's neon sign flickered in the fading light as Sarah and her daughters stepped inside. The familiar scent of coffee and grilled sandwiches filled the air, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. But today, everything felt different. The clatter of utensils against plates seemed to amplify the whispers that followed her. She could almost hear the judgment in their eyes, like a cold breath against her back. "Mommy, can we get milkshakes?" Lily's bright voice broke through the wall of noise, and Sarah knelt to meet her daughters' excited faces, momentarily pushing away her anxiety. "Of course, but let us save them for after we eat, okay?" Emma nodded eagerly, her brown curls bouncing as she pulled her sister toward a booth. Sarah felt a wave of warmth wash over her. These girls were her anchor, a reminder that love was stronger than gossip. As they settled into the booth, she realized it wasn't just about facing the people of Maplewood, it was about being present for her daughters, showing them that they could weather any storm together. The waitress, familiar from countless mornings of quick coffee rushes, shot her an exuberant smile. "Wow, Sarah! Look at you! What s with the wheels?" There was an edge of intrigue in her voice, but it felt supportive, more curious than derogatory. "Just trying to keep up with my girls," Sarah replied with a laugh that felt surprisingly genuine. It wasn't just a catchphrase, she meant it. Each day she faced the world anew, pushing back against the weight of expectations. Even as the small talk filled their table, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was still on trial. What would they say when they thought she couldn't hear? Were they questioning her intentions, or were they proud of her determination? She refocused her gaze on Emma and Lily, who were engaged in a secret hand game. Their innocence wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket. Her thoughts drifted as a group of old high school acquaintances wandered in, their laughter cutting through her reverie like ice. She recognized them immediately. They had been part of her life in the Gilded Days, when she had been a trophy spouse, now transformed into what felt like an entirely different person. "Look who it is," one of them said, more loud than necessary, drawing stares. "The Ferrari lady." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, wishing she could shut out the noise, but inwardly bracing herself, she reminded herself why she was fighting so hard. She wanted her daughters to know that it wasn't the car or the house that defined success, it was the strength of character she built within them. "Mommy, they look mean," Lily whispered, her big eyes searching Sarah's for reassurance. "They're not mean, honey. They're just surprised." Sarah smiled, choosing not to share her insecurities. As dinner progressed, something shifted. Sarah felt a familiar fire inside her. When another employee came over to ask if she needed anything, Sarah took a deep breath, finally ready to share her truth. "You know, I've been through some things," she started, her voice steady despite the mounting tension she perceived in the room. The words rolled off her tongue like a dam breaking. She spoke about resilience, about hope, and about dreams that didn't fade just because of hardships. Her vulnerabilities poured out, mingling with her pride as she told her own story, each sentence piercing through the silence that had engulfed the diner. With each moment, she found her footing once more, revealing the fragile beauty of transformation. The people around her listened, and something began to shift. Eyes softened. Whispers quieted. For the first time, some of them seemed to lean in instead of look away. Sarah finished, the weight of her words lingering in the air. She glanced back at her daughters, who beamed with pride. But just as she found her footing, another pang of realization hit her. What if she had been too open too soon? What if they didn't understand? As she began to contemplate, a figure approached her table, a face she hadn't seen in ages. The last person she expected on such a night. "Sarah." The voice was low and edged with familiarity. In that moment, she felt the world tilt again. Would this meeting seal her fate, or shake the foundation of her newfound life? The atmosphere shifted as Sarah's gaze met the familiar face. It was Mark, her ex-husband. His appearance was magnetic, even in worn jeans and a simple tee. Memories of laughter, pain, and every word left unsaid flickered in her mind. She braced herself, not sure if this was a blessing or a curse. Mark, the name slipped from her lips, carrying a decade's worth of emotions. All the moments they had shared surged forward, running the spectrum from bliss to heartbreak. "Can I sit?" he asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. Sarah hesitated. The booth felt warm, almost protective, but she nodded. "Sure." She took a deep breath as he slid onto the vinyl seat across from her. The girls, oblivious to the tension, continued their playful game. "Wow, this place hasn't changed a bit," Mark said, scanning the diner, yet his eyes kept returning to her. "And neither have you. You look good." Her cheeks flushed, but she hid the reaction behind a playful smirk. "Thanks. You too, I guess. Life treating you well?" He shrugged, the weight of that move suggesting something far deeper than the simplicity of his reply. It has its ups and downs, you know how that goes. Yeah, I do. Sarah raised an eyebrow. After the divorce, when she had trudged through her rock bottom, those ups and downs had almost crushed her. Listen, he lowered his voice, I saw you tonight. The way you spoke. I couldn't help but feel impressed. Impressed? She chuckled, disbelief lacing her response. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man whose opinions had once rattled her the most was now impressed. Yes, he replied earnestly. You really seem to have found your voice. I never thought I'd see you here, in this space, owning it. It's incredible, Sarah. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. Until now, she hadn't realized how much she needed validation from him. But the moment passed quickly, replaced by a flurry of insecurities. What if he was just saying these things to ease the awkwardness? What if he didn't truly mean it? Thanks, she said cautiously. Then, noticing the undeterred laughter of her girls, she reassured herself. It wasn't about impressing Mark anymore, it was about preserving the strong spirit growing within her daughters. Yet, confusion curled in her gut. Did he recognize their bond in that moment? Did he see how they transformed her? I want to know more about you, Mark continued. What you're doing. How the girls are. Sarah could feel herself teetering on a tightrope between old wounds and new truths. She wanted to share everything, the struggles, the victories, the real story that made up their lives now. But the questions lingered, would he truly understand? Before she could respond, Lily's infectious giggle broke the tension. She looked up at Sarah, her small hands cradling a carton of milk. Look, Mommy. I caught a butterfly. She held it up triumphantly, a face beaming with excitement that turned Sarah's apprehensions to dust. That's amazing, sweetie. Sarah smiled, her heart softening as she turned back to Mark. That's what this is about. Being there for them every day. Building something real. Something hopeful. Mark's expression shifted. There was a flicker of recognition, as if Sarah had pulled back the curtain on a past he hoped he could grasp but couldn't quite reach. I see that, he said slowly, absorbing her words. It looks like they're thriving. The conversation took on a life of its own. They talked about the girls, their school, their activities, and the more they reminisced, the deeper the connection felt. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the ruinous encounter she had feared. As the night wore on, they'd almost forgotten the stares of their former friends across the diner. The laughter echoed around them, the warmth of connection filled the space. But then, just as she felt she could finally breathe easy, Mark's expression shifted once again, as if he was about to drop a bomb. I have to ask, Sarah. What if? What if I told you I'd like to be part of your life again? Sarah's heart raced, caught between her fears and the tug of possibility. Was this the gateway to a new beginning or another illusion destined to crumble? What do you mean by that? She asked hesitantly, holding on to the moment like a lifeline, fully aware of the stakes. Mark leaned back slightly, his brow furrowing as he considered his words carefully. The playful energy that once filled the booth was now thick with tension, as if the very air around them vibrated with unresolved history. Sarah held her breath, feeling the weight of his gaze, each passing second stretching into eternity. I think we both know things didn't end well for us, Mark began, his voice soft but firm. But I've had time to think. To grow. And I miss you, Sarah. I miss the family we were trying to build. Maybe it's not too late. Her heart pounded against her chest, a cacophony of past and present clashing relentlessly. The memory of late-night fights, tears shed in silence, the solid walls they had built around the love they once shared, all teetered on the edge of a single breath. Mark, she faltered, the words tangling in her throat. Part of her longed for the familiarity of an old love, a sense of comfort she once cherished. But now, she was a different person, stronger, more assured, and fiercely protective of the life she had rebuilt with her girls. Just give it a chance, he pressed, earnestness washing over him like a wave. I know I made mistakes, and I hurt you, but I've realized what truly matters. And it's not about just me anymore. It's about us, about being a family. Sarah looked over at Lily and Emma, their laughter floating toward her like a soothing balm. They were happy, thriving even, and she couldn't bear to put that in jeopardy. Could Mark really mean what he said? Are you sure it's not just nostalgia? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You can't just come back and expect things to be the way they were. I'm not asking for the past, Mark replied quickly, his eyes flashing with determination. I want to build something new. I want to be there for the girls, for you. I want us to work together, not against each other. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She had built a fortress of strength, surrounded herself with walls, yet here he was inviting her to contemplate tearing them down. I don't know, she murmured, her mind racing. I have to think about the girls. They've been through so much. I understand, he said, his tone gentle. But think about it. We could be a team again. I can be better for you, for them. I want to show you that I've changed. Those words hung in the air, suspended like a double-edged sword. She felt a flicker of hope battling her instinct to protect. Could he really be different this time, or was she just setting herself up for another heartbreak? Before the tension could deepen, Emma nudged Sarah, eyes wide with curiosity. Mommy, can we go home soon? I'm getting hungry. Sarah smiled at her daughter, grateful for the distraction but also reminded of her responsibilities. Soon, honey, she replied, then turned back to Mark. What you're asking, it's a lot. It requires trust, and trust takes time to rebuild. Then let us take that time, Mark said quickly, his voice a mix of desperation and excitement. Let us start by spending time together. Just like we used to. In that moment, Sarah felt the walls she had erected wobble ever so slightly. What if there was a way to explore this new possibility without losing everything she had fought for? Okay, she said finally, surprising even herself. Maybe we can try, but cautiously. For the girls' sake. A smile broke over Mark's face, transforming his features into something hopeful. Yet beneath that hope, Sarah sensed the drifting uncertainty. Besides, she wasn't sure if she could truly trust him again. They exchanged a tentative smile, but just as the tension began shifting from them, the door flew open. A rush of electricity filled the diner as a striking figure stepped in, a woman in a sleek red dress, fierce and confident. She scanned the room, and Sarah's heart sank as she registered the chill radiating from her presence. Mark, the woman called out, her voice cutting through the murmur of the diner. There you are. I was looking for you. Just like that, the moment was stolen, replaced by a new wave of anxiety. Who was this woman? And what did she have to do with Mark's life now? Sarah's heart raced again, not just with uncertainty, but with fear of what this new twist meant for her fragile truce. Mark's expression shifted, uncertainty flashing across his face as he took in the confident woman who had just entered the diner. Sarah's heart sank further, each beat echoing a fresh wave of doubt. The warmth of their moment was extinguished, replaced by a sudden chill that enveloped her. She felt exposed, as if the walls she had just begun to let down were shooting back up around her. Who is she? Emma's voice cut through Sarah's thoughts, innocent and direct. Sarah offered a weak smile to her daughter, wishing she had the answers to satisfy her. I don't know, sweetie, she said, her voice trembling slightly, not just from fear but from an unexpected surge of protectiveness. Let me check. Mark stood up, his body stiffening the moment he took in the woman's bright red dress. The contrast of his casual jeans against her polished elegance made Sarah's insecurity deepen. I'll be right back, he said, the tone of his voice now having an edge of apprehension. As Mark approached the figure, Sarah could see the woman's sharp gaze fixate on him, a blend of authority and endearment that turned Sarah's stomach. What history did they share? 1,000 questions swirled in her mind, each growing more frantic as their bodies drew closer. She couldn't help but feel like an intruder in her own life, and the familiar comfort she sought began to slip further away. "Mommy, can we go home?" Lily asked, her voice small. Sarah could see the worry in her daughter's eyes, reflecting her own. "Soon, honey. Just give me a minute, okay?" Sarah forced a smile, but her heart wasn't in it. She felt torn, battling a whirlpool of emotions as she watched Mark and the stranger exchange words, swift movements and hushed tones full of unspoken communication. "What does she want?" Emma whispered, tugging on her mother's sleeve. "I don't know, sweetheart." Sarah clenched her fist under the table, frustration and anticipation battling for dominance. The tentacles of jealousy curled tight around her heart, squeezing it painfully as she watched Mark gesture animatedly. Did he still have feelings for this woman? In that moment, the diner fell silent for Sarah. The laughter around her faded into a distant echo, leaving only the sharp sounds of her breathing. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, the bitterness of betrayal mingling with the hope she had dared to entertain. Then something shifted again. Mark's posture changed, a slight stiffening as he turned back towards Sarah, their eyes locking. A flicker of uncertainty passed between them, but the woman in the red dress wouldn't let go easily. She gestured with deliberate movements, an urgency in her voice that Sarah couldn't hear, but her body read loud and clear. Just then, the bell atop the diner door jingled as another person rushed in, a frazzled man, fixated on the woman in red. "Maria! There you are!" he shouted, clearly agitated yet underscored with familiarity. Mark's gaze faltered, and Sarah seized that moment to reach for his idea that had emerged moments ago, the thought of rebuilding, of trust. But now it felt fragile, hanging by a mere thread. The possibility of a future seemed to teeter back toward uncertainty. "Mommy, can we go now?" Lily repeated, impatience creeping into her tone. "Yes, let us go," Sarah said abruptly, her heart pounding. She didn't want to expose her girls to whatever chaotic drama Mark was caught up in. Mark's face fell, a mixture of surprise and regret pulling at his features as she stood up. "Sarah, wait. Just give me a second." But she didn't look back, reaching for Lily's hand, feeling Emma's eyes on her, a mixture of confusion and concern. With each step toward the door, a part of her wanted to turn around and step back into the warmth of their earlier conversation. Instead, she kept moving, the sounds of laughter and chatter fading behind her, leaving her alone with her swirling thoughts. As they stepped outside, a cool breeze met them, and Sarah took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind. She caught a glimpse of Mark through the window, speaking animatedly with the woman, this new dynamic invading the comfort she had so carefully nurtured. "Mommy?" Emma nudged her gently. "Are we going to be okay?" The uncertainty in her daughter's voice struck her hard, and Sarah turned to look at her girls, both innocent and shielded. The last thing she wanted was to let them down, to shatter the world they had built together. "I promise we will be, sweetheart," she said, though her own heart quaked with doubt. But what she didn't expect was for the door to swing open behind them again, Mark's figure emerging with an urgency that told her this was far from over. As their gazes locked, she felt her chest tighten, a war brewing between the desire for understanding and the fierce instinct to protect her family. "Sarah, please." His voice cut through the air like a knife. It was a plea, personal and raw, echoing into the depths of her heart. And just like that, an unexpected decision loomed ahead. Would she dig her heels in, or was there still room for her heart to open? Mark's voice echoed around Sarah like a thunderclap, drawing the world back into focus. The noise of the diner faded to a hum, and all she could hear was her own heartbeat, loud and unsteady. It took everything in her not to give in to the turmoil inside her. She stayed rooted to the sidewalk, trying to decipher the urgency in Mark's expression. "Please, just hear me out," he continued, stepping closer. The warmth of his presence mixed with the chill in the air, igniting conflicting feelings in her. Was it desperation on his face, or was it something deeper, something still tethering him to her? "Mommy, I don't like it," Lily said, clenching her small hand tighter around Sarah's. Emma tilted her head, studying Mark with her big, questioning eyes. Sarah felt the weight of her children's gazes, they were her priority. Mark, she said, her voice steadying but weary, I don't think now is the right time. She could sense the shifts in the air, the tension rippling like the surface of water disturbed by a heavy stone. I know. I know, he replied hurriedly. But it's Maria. I promise it's not what you think. His words rushed out, each syllable a plea, an attempt to bridge the gap that felt unsurmountable. Sarah's throat tightened. Maria, the red-dressed woman with the commanding presence. What, you think I believe that? You're really doing this right now? No. I mean yes, I want to explain, but it's not easy. You have to trust me, he said, his voice pained, each word a slice of honesty. Trust? She spat back, frustration bubbling adrift as her mind raced with conversations they'd had over the years, the times he'd failed her, the promises unfulfilled. The very foundation of their relationship felt like a fragile glass ornament ready to shatter. Mark took another step closer, his hands half raised in a sign of peace. I messed up, Sarah. But I want to be there for you, for the girls. A cold breeze brushed against Sarah, and suddenly, the air felt oppressive. Memories flooded back, shared laughter, quiet moments on the couch, the way he made her smile with just a wink. Yet she could not let nostalgia cloud her judgment. Mommy, please, Emma chimed in, speaking with a little more conviction. Do we have to leave? Can't we stay? The hope in her child's voice twisted at Sarah's heart. She wanted to shield them from pain, but letting go felt like relinquishing hope. Looking back at Mark, she felt raw and exposed. Was he still the man she fell for, or had that man dissolved into the one confronting her now? Just give us a second, will you? She said softly, looking down at her girls. Their innocence and trust hung heavily on her shoulders. Please. Mark nodded, but the look in his eyes said he was fighting a battle of his own. I'll wait, but Mommy, I'm scared, Lily murmured, her tiny face pinched with worry. I know, baby. I'm here, Sarah responded, kneeling to cup the sides of her daughter's face. Her heart ached at the sight. The two girls were all she ever wanted, yet here they stood on the precipice of uncertainty. Sarah, Mark's voice broke into her thoughts once again, this time more subdued, as if losing a battle he was willing to fight for. She let out a breath, letting the moment hang suspended between them. Did she owe him this chance, or was it simply the echo of the past urging her to cling to what may never be again? What if you were to start over? With me? Mark finally asked, vulnerability threading through his words. Her heart raced as his question hovered like a specter in the air, taunting her with possibility. But behind the emotional weight, a counterargument pulled her in another direction, the fear of falling only to get hurt again. The transformation in their relationship felt monumental, a mountain she needed to climb before the fog of uncertainty swallowed her whole. She craved a moment of clarity, something to guide her. But was there truly room for a new beginning amidst the shadows of their past? As she stood there, torn between the tides of possibility, she suddenly heard a loud honk from the parking lot. Turning quickly, she caught sight of a sleek black car, the kind she'd never expected to see in their small town. Mark's eyes widened, and he turned to her in alarm. Before he could finish, a figure stepped out of the car, their intentions clear. The face sent a shiver through Sarah, and it felt like chaos was about to break. Mark! The newcomer shouted, commanding the space with undeniable authority. His tone, charged with urgency and recognition, seemed to seal their fates. Who was this unexpected player in their unfolding drama? What shadowy connections lay beneath the surface, and would they reveal truths Sarah wasn't ready to face? All Sarah could think was that she was standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath her shifting as the story took an unexpected turn. Would fear push her back, or would courage drive her to leap into the unknown? The newcomer stepped out of the car with an air of confidence that made Sarah's stomach churn. He was tall, with sharp features framed by slick back hair that glinted under the diner's neon lights. A sense of authority radiated from him, the kind that made it hard to ignore the negative energy swirling in Sarah's chest. "Mark," he called again, his voice gravelly but commanding. "We need to talk. Now." Sarah felt a wave of confusion wash over her. This man, who was he? Did he come to reinforce the pain already simmering in her heart? Why now, when they were wrestling with their own fractured history? Mark's face twisted into something between surprise and dread. "Carter? What are you doing here?" Carter? The name rang a bell, an echo from the past she couldn't quite place. Was he a friend, or something more sinister? "Do you think this is the time?" Carter shot back, his tone laced with urgency. "You of all people should know better." Their exchange sent Sarah reeling. She stole a glance at her daughters, who stood by her, wide-eyed and fidgeting. The situation felt more explosive than a firecracker on the 4th of July, and she was trapped in the middle of it. "Mark, who is he?" Sarah finally demanded, her voice barely above a whisper, but it carried a weight that made both men turn to her. "Carter is well, an old friend," Mark stammered, eyes darting back to the man who approached with an intensity she hadn't noticed until now. Friend? The word felt inadequate. More like a ghost from the past that had come to haunt them. Sarah's heart raced, and her mind ran wild with questions. What business did Carter have with Mark? Considering their history, the last thing she wanted was to invite more chaos into her life. Old friend? Carter laughed, a sharp sound that didn't reach his eyes. Let us not sugarcoat it. You know exactly why I'm here, Mark. Mommy, can we go home? Lily implored, her tiny hand squeezing Sarah's tighter than ever. Not yet, sweetheart, Sarah replied, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. Just a few more minutes. The heaviness of the air intensified as Mark and Carter stared each other down. Sarah shifted her weight from one foot to another, feeling the cold seep into her bones. Each tick of the clock became a reminder of what lay ahead. Believe me, Carter said, glancing at her, your life will be easier if you just listen for a moment. Sarah narrowed her eyes, unwilling to trust either of them. Why should I? Because I know things about Mark that you deserve to hear, he said, the authority in his voice now touching an uneasy sincerity. Things that will change everything. Heart pounding, a mix of anger and dread churning inside her, Sarah considered her options. Did she dare invite this stranger's truths into their world? Just tell me what is going on. Mark finally broke, frustration dripping from his words. You said you'd keep your distance. Carter stepped forward, lowering his voice. It's not about me keeping distance. It's about something bigger, something dangerous. A chill crept down Sarah's spine. Dangerous? What did that mean? A sting of fear gnawed at her resolve. Mark wasn't just facing the ghosts of their past, it sounded like hell was coming for them. Was it about Maria? Sarah questioned, suddenly feeling uneasy moments of their past click into place, an affair, a betrayal, a new life forged without her knowledge. I can't discuss this here, Carter said, panic flashing in his eyes before returning to the hardened mask he wore. Then where? Sarah demanded. Her heart drummed a protest, but her instincts already buzzed with the need to understand that as they stood there, three hurting hearts exposed against the uncertainty of their future, Sarah realized this wasn't just about her and Mark anymore. If there was a threat out there, they all had a stake in it. Everything had spiraled into a vortex of chaos, and she hovered on the edge. A choice lay before her, one that could pull them back into darkness or lead them down an unexpected path. What do you need from us? She finally asked, her voice steady in the storm that raged. Around them. Carter looked at her, eyes narrowing with calculation. Your trust and a willingness to fight for the truth. As uncertainty twisted within her, the stakes rose higher than she ever imagined. What was the truth they were facing, and would it tear them apart or bring them closer than ever? Just then, an unexpected rumble echoed through the narrow street, the ground vibrating slightly, a prelude to change. What was waiting just around the corner? In that moment, she knew one thing for sure: the darkness wasn't done with her yet. The diner, a sanctuary of familiarity, felt hostile now. The neon lights flickered erratically, casting strange shadows on Sarah's face while her heart raced with each breath. She tried to push the fear aside, focusing instead on Mark, the man she thought she knew. What does he mean, something dangerous? Mark's gaze was steely, but there was a flicker of regret in his eyes. Carter, he's not just anyone. He's involved in things we never anticipated. Things we never anticipated. What did that mean? Sarah desperately wanted to buckle under the weight of uncertainty. She wanted to take her daughters and flee to the safety of home, but deep down, she sensed they were already entangled in whatever shadows Carter had brought with him. Mommy Lily's shaky voice broke through her haze, pulling her back. I'm scared. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, brushing a hair from her face. It's okay, sweetie. Just hold on to me tightly. She glanced at Mark, who looked just as lost as she felt. Their shared bewilderment was a silent plea for clarity. Carter, just tell us what's going on, Mark said, his voice strained. You said it was dangerous. What do you mean? Carter shifted his weight, glancing nervously down the street as if he expected something or someone to come for him. There's a bigger game at play, Mark. One that doesn't care about your mistakes. Your past isn't just snowflakes on a window anymore, it's a storm brewing right at your doorstep. A storm? Sarah's tone sharpened, biting down the urge to scream. What kind of storm? As Carter began to respond, a deafening roar interrupted them. A sleek black SUV screeched to a halt just outside the diner. The engine shut off, but the tension spiked, sending a ripple of dread through the air. Everyone stay close. Mark barked, immediately reaching for Sarah's hand. Her heart raced faster as she felt Lily grip her thigh. A figure stepped out of the SUV, silhouetted against the headlights. He was framed in darkness, obscuring any details. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Carter, we need to go. The newcomer yelled, urgency cutting through the fog of confusion. His presence radiated a sort of raw energy that mirrored Carter's but felt distinctly different. Mark's knuckles turned white as he held on to Sarah, his eyes darting between the two men. What did you get us into, Carter? It's not what I did, it's what Mark has been keeping from you. Carter shot back, glancing nervously at the new figure whose tense stance suggested danger. His words hung in the air, laden with the promise of truths yet to unravel. The uncertainty became palpable, a suffocating blanket of dread. Mommy Lily whimpered. What is happening? Before Sarah could respond, the man from the SUV took a step forward. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, though his voice was low and gravelly. But we have to move, now. Why? Sarah felt the need to anchor herself. There was an unspoken weight behind those words, and she had to know. Because the storm is coming, and it doesn't care if you're ready or not. His eyes narrowed at Mark, a challenge hidden in their depths. What storm? The question echoed in Sarah's mind like a persistent drum. As much as she wanted to dismiss this unfolding chaos, she felt its threads weaving into her life. Carter glanced at the newcomer, his expression a mix of anxiety and resolve. They deserved to know everything, but not here. Not now. The tension was thick, each second stretching into eternity. If they didn't act soon, things could spiral completely out of control. Sarah sensed the gravity of their world shifting beneath their feet, like the ground itself was begging them to choose a side. Mark, I need to know what you're hiding, she pressed, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I can't keep living in the dark. Mark hesitated, the gears in his mind visibly grinding, but before he could answer, the unmistakable sound of sirens sounded in the distance. Time's up. Carter snapped, panic etching his features. They had to hurry, and with urgency creeping in, Sarah realized they were standing on the precipice of an unknown journey. With the sirens drawing closer, she knew their only option was to trust the man she barely knew. Would stepping into the unknown save them, or would it lead to an even darker place? "Trust me," Carter said, extending his hand towards Sarah, his gaze fierce. As she stood there, contemplating her next move, Sarah's heart thudded with uncertainty. Should she reach for the hand of the one who claimed to know the truth, or turn away and shield her family from deeper pain? In that moment, as the distant wail grew louder, she faced a choice that would redefine everything. What would she choose? The sirens grew closer, wailing like a banshee, a clarion call of impending chaos. Sarah's heart raced, a primal instinct telling her to flee. But here she was, frozen in place, caught between two worlds: safety and uncertainty. "Please, Sarah, take my hand," Carter urged, his voice urgent yet somehow compassionate. His hand, outstretched and steady, offered a lifeline, a way out of the chaos. Mark glanced at the approaching lights, his face drawn tight. "We can't just rush into whatever this is without knowing more," he shouted, but the desperation in his tone was unmistakable. Lily tugged at Sarah's sleeve, her small fingers trembling. "Mommy, I'm scared. Can we go home?" Tears pricked at the edges of Sarah's eyes, her heart ached to shield her girls from this world unraveling around them. "I know, sweetheart. I want to go home too," she whispered, her voice barely a murmur. The shadowy figure from the SUV stepped closer, the headlights illuminating his features. His face was chiseled, tight with tension, yet somehow familiar. There was an intensity about him that sparked a fleeting memory, buried deep under layers of routine and comfort. "Listen to me," he said, locking eyes with Mark. "If they find us here, there won't be an opportunity to explain. We need to get moving." Sarah felt the urgency crackle in the air, a warning that shook her from her indecision. "What are we dealing with?" she managed to ask, needing something solid to ground her amid the swirling chaos. "Just trust me," Carter reiterated, an almost desperate plea in his voice. "Everything will make sense soon, I promise." Behind him, the blare of the sirens intensified, their echo ricocheting off the diner walls, a relentless reminder of their dwindling time. "Fine." Mark's voice was a mix of frustration and resolve. "Let us go. But if we're doing this, we do it together. No more secrets." Sarah turned swiftly to Carter, resolve coating her voice. "You too, Carter. None of us should be left in the dark anymore." He nodded, a flicker of gratitude passing between them. It felt strangely comforting, as if a fragile alliance had formed in that very moment. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reached out. She gripped Carter's hand, feeling the weight of his sweat-slicked palm against her own. Mark followed suit, and quickly, Lily was enveloped among them, a protective circle molded from urgency and fear. "Now!" the man from the SUV shouted, propelling them toward the vehicle. The urgency of his voice carried the weight of their lives, every second felt like it could tip them into disaster. They piled into the SUV, the interior dark and foreign yet somehow promising escape. As the vehicle roared to life, tires screeched against the diner's pavement, propelling them away from the familiar. Relief mixed with uncertainty swirled inside Sarah. "Where are we even going?" she asked, dimly aware that she didn't know where this path might lead. "We just need to get ahead of them," the man replied fiercely. "Then we'll talk." With each passing block, the lights of the diner faded. Each familiar storefront merged into a blur, and it sank in. They were leaving everything behind. The weight of that reality pressed heavily on Sarah's chest, heavy as lead. "Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled from the back seat, breaking through the silence. "Are we going to be okay?" Sarah turned slightly, meeting her daughter's wide, innocent eyes in the rearview mirror. "We will, baby. I promise." But would they? As she spoke the comfort, doubts twisted in her gut. How could she assure her daughters of safety when the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty? The sirens faded into the background, but the storm still loomed, an unseen force ready to strike. What were they running from, and would the truth be like a lightning bolt in a storm, illuminating only to blind? With every heartbeat, the urge to uncover the truth tugged at her. Just ahead, amidst the shadows of the night, a flicker of headlights illuminated something more, an unknown future waiting at the edge of their journey. Would it bring light to the dark or plunge them deeper into chaos? An unsettling tension hung in the air, thicker than smoke. "Carter, just tell us what we're up against," she finally demanded, the words a dare more than a question. His jaw tightened as he met her gaze. And in that moment, Sarah knew whatever lay ahead would shake their foundations forever. What other secrets was Mark hiding? And who else was out there waiting to pounce? Carter exhaled sharply, tension framing his face. "It's not just a past we're trying to escape. It's people, dangerous people." The gravity of his words settled heavily around them like a shroud. People. Sarah's heart raced, every instinct screaming to protect her girls. Her hands clenched tightly on her knees. "Yeah," Mark chimed in, urgency igniting his voice. "I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought, once I cut ties, it would be over." "Over?" Sarah laughed humorlessly, the bitterness spilling through. "You think it just goes away because you don't want it?" "Exactly," Mark said, desperation lacing every syllable. "When I said I wanted to rebuild, I meant it. Leaving that life behind was the first step." Carter turned and met Sarah's eyes directly. "That life is more insidious than you think. You're intertwined, even if Mark doesn't want to see it." The weight of those words wrapped around Sarah's chest. "So, what do we do?" she asked, lost in the storm of emotions brewing inside. "How do we fight back against something we don't even understand?" The SUV swerved, a side street appearing out of nowhere, the sound of tires gripping asphalt bringing a moment of clarity. "We don't fight just yet," Carter replied grimly. "We need to find out what we're dealing with before we make our next move." As they drove into the dark of night, Sarah felt the enormity of their situation eclipsing everything else. Her thoughts turned to Emma and Lily. Young, sweet, and unwitting victims of their parents' choices. "Are we in danger, Mommy?" Lily's tiny voice broke the chain of strife. The innocence in her question sent a shard of pain through Sarah's heart. "No, honey," Sarah said, her voice firm yet soothing. "We're safe. I promise." She forced a smile, willing herself to believe those words, even as shadows loomed over them. Mark's hand brushed against hers, a reminder of their shared burden. Their eyes met briefly, questions unspoken but dramatically clear. Sarah understood they stood at the crossroads of vulnerability and fortitude. She took a deep breath, the air thick with unresolved tension. Carter turned onto a deserted road, lights ahead twinkling like faint stars. "We're going to lay low for a while," he instructed. "Find a safe house. There's a strong network nearby, we just have to be smart about it." As they drove, anticipation unspooled inside Sarah. She couldn't shake the unease that festered just beneath the surface. What awaited them when they reached the safe house? Suddenly, Mark leaned closer to her. "Look, none of this was my intention," he said earnestly. "If there is something lurking in the shadows, I'll protect you and the girls. I promise I'm different now." Tears prickled at the corners of Sarah's eyes. Could she really trust him? Would that promise hold weight when everything hung in the balance? "Do you really expect me to believe you've changed?" Sarah pushed back, pain twisting in her gut. Memories of their past haunted her presence. "It's not about belief," Mark replied softly. "It's about action. I mean it." The sincerity he emitted tugged at something deep inside her. "Mommy?" Emma's voice carried an innocent ripple of anxiety. Sarah turned her attention back to the girls. "We're going to be okay," she said fiercely, not just for them, but for herself. She needed that sense of resilience, the inner strength that had guided her through darkness time and again. they pulled up to a modest house nestled behind rows of tall trees. "This is it," Carter declared, leading them out of the vehicle. "We'll be safe here while we regroup." As they stepped inside, Sarah felt the weight of the world draw closer. The walls seemed to close in, wrapping around them with a sense of foreboding. Yet, within that space, she noticed a semblance of calm. Here, at least, they could plan. Lily clutched her mother's leg, a silent reminder of what was at stake. Sarah knelt and looked her directly in the eye. "No matter what happens, I'm here. We're here together." Emma nodded in agreement, bolstering the family bond that would guide them through the storm. Carter began rummaging through his bag, pulling out a map and some documents. "We need to get a handle on what we're up against. Mark, you know more about this than Sarah and the girls." Mark's expression tightened, torn between fear of his past and the hope of redemption. "Yeah, I know, but it's complicated." "Complicated doesn't matter now," Carter snapped, urgency compelling him forward. "We've crossed a line, and there's no turning back. We need honesty, and we need it now." "They'll come for us," Mark finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "The moment they catch wind of where I am, they won't stop." The tension crackled in the air like static electricity. "So what do we do?" Sarah pressed, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Do we hide? Run again, or do we fight?" Carter paused, locking his eyes on Sarah. "Fighting might be our only chance, but we have to plan. We have to be smart. For you and your girls." Suddenly, the gravity of their situation struck Sarah like a tide, knocking the breath from her lungs. The storm wasn't just weathering around them, it was inside, pushing them toward a reckoning that had been years in the making. As the night wore on, they strategized around the table, voices quiet but determined. The fear etched on the children's faces fueled her resolve. She would protect them, and she would not falter. In that moment, Sarah recognized her transformation. It wasn't just about battling her past. It was about rising beyond it, forging a future for her daughters filled with strength and love. They would fight, side by side, wherever the storm led them. This was just the beginning. A path laden with challenges but veiled in hope. And as their plans unfolded, she suddenly realized, like stars shining through the night, the glimmers of freedom and courage waited just on the other side of the chaos. Now, it was time to rise. Don't let this journey end here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will rock your world. Please, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. And comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. You know how important your voices are. Lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Together, we can make our community stronger.